Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Monday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. So does DC need a cinematic universe? Well, what we're getting is huger than a cinematic universe because we're going to be on cinemas, television sets, whatever devices you're using, animation and gaming. So is that what is called for the future? Is that what we need? Well, Warner Brothers Discovery will tell you this is exactly what we need because it covers their bottom line. They think they're going to make record-breaking money from this. And of course, the concept is a good concept, a good business idea, but you have to execute it in the right way. But for the fans, is this exactly what's needed? Well, let's look at this both in a business way and a kind of fandom way as well. Because let's look at all the franchises we've had in cinemas, right? Well, let's not look at all of them, we'll be here all day. But let's look at the one that you can say, apart from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, genuinely succeeded, but only lasted for 8 films. And that's the Harry Potter franchise. I can't think of another franchise, apart from the MCU, that had, over 5 movies, but was really successful. Harry Potter, each film was adapted from J.K. Rowling's books. So she was there, she knew what was going on, she knew what would happen, and if she didn't like something Warner's were going to do, she was unhappy. Luckily, they chose a group of people that she could get on with. So, next to the MCU, Harry Potter is kind of the next successful franchise in terms of box office and games, by the way, and books. Not television, they never went into television, but, that's Zaslav's next port of call, Harry Potter. So next to the MCU, that's the closest success story that anyone's done and anyone's succeeded on. And so, you're asking James Gunn and Peter Safran to do something that no one's really achieved. They want it as, they want to have as much content as the Marvel Cinematic Universe has had. And of course, the most important thing is to make the amount of money. So in terms of business, it's a good idea, but it all depends how you do it. You see, James Gunn is now talking about his 10-year plan. He's also told a fan on Twitter that there should be some news on that some point next year before San Diego Comic-Con, because a lot of you were disputing me when I said we would get something before San Diego Comic-Con, and that's exactly when we're going to get it. But so, yeah, you've got this situation where, you ask the question, is the cinematic universe, is a continued universe, should I say, the way we need to go here? Now, done in the right way, this could work for fans and for the business as well. Of course it could. But also, there's so many ways this thing could go south. Because you've got this situation where we had a Snyderverse, which was never finished. Those fans are extremely angry about that. And so you've got that situation as well. So there's a lot that, look, James Gunn and Peter Safran are inheriting a lot of old baggage, if you like. And what they've got to do is create something new. And that's exactly what they're attempting to do. It's very interesting to me, by the way, how neither Peter or Zaslav is, but neither Peter or James Gunn are talking about next year's DC movies, which clearly have nothing to do with the new DC universe. That's pretty clear. They're not promoting them. They're not going to conventions. They're not talking about those movies. I believe the reason why the announcement has been made around a month ago that we're getting a DC universe and DC Studios was announced, and Peter and James were announced as the co-chairs of this DC Studios, was to distract from next year's DC Extended Universe movies. They're releasing the final 4. Mick, you're asking, Mick, why would any company want to distract from their own movies being released? Of course they want them to make money. Of course they do. But there's this kind of situation arising where they've kind of worked out that it's game over for those movies. Look what Black Adam did. There is really no outside interest in these DC Extended Universe movies now. My analogy is, it's like going to a market stall and every morning you go past and there's a smell, and it's the stall that sells those, you know, out of date, moldy, disgusting potatoes, and everybody can smell them a mile off and no one's going to touch them. It's the same with these remaining 4 DCEU movies. They stink like yesterday's garbage. Everybody knows there's no future in them. There's some deluded fans who actually think the Flash movie sets up the new DC universe. And of course, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think that I am. I mean, this is where it gets confusing as well, if you like, because imagine we see the Flash movie and no one says anything about the future DC universe content. And we see the Flash movie and we see no Superman, we see a Supergirl, we see Keaton's Batman. Apparently Keaton has got a reduced role in the Flash movie in the future of DC now. Not that that franchise doesn't have a future anymore. Anyway, but imagine we see that film and it sets up in the timeline it was supposed to set up in the DCEU. We were supposed to be setting up a multiverse strategy. And people get confused. So is this the new timeline now? So clearly, James Gunn and Peter Safran and the studio itself have to tell us what's going on with DC Universe before the Flash movie is released, or it's going to get rather confusing. So, as I say, if they actually make a success of the execution of this new DC Universe, of course it could be really exciting. And, you know, fans are chomping at the bit to find out. I mean, I don't know what all the mystery is, because I think it's pretty obvious if you use your common sense and intellect what's going to happen with this DC universe. You just have to binge every single MCU movie. In fact, you just have to binge 2 of them. It's pretty obvious we're going down the MCU direction, the MCU roadmap. The only difference is this is a little bit more ambitious, because we're not even going to try and earn the right to kind of get to that stage where you want to have more and more content. As soon as this DC Universe is launched, you're going to have movies announced, TV shows announced, animation announced, and games announced, right? And the MCU didn't just jump into having 4 movies a year. They took their time. But Warner Brothers think they can just go boom. And because they're in a rush to make money, that's the thing. Can that work? It can work, but it can also, you know, be a very dangerous game to play, to launch something and say, right, it's here now, you can have this, you can have this, you can have it all. Now, as I say, from one point of view, that's very, very exciting, but I suppose because it's DC and people know the platform already and it has its fans, that could work. Normally, for me, you have to wait till something's a hit before you start expanding it to other mediums like television, animation, and gaming. Throwing it at people straight away, you know, it could just bounce off. People could just say, you know what, I'm not interested in this. It's new. You know, give me a chance to soak in the first movie, the first TV show. You're throwing everything at me. So now I'm supposed to kind of watch films, games, you know, play games, animation, watch TV shows, just like that. So I think you know where I'm coming from, you know, but because they're in such a rush to, you know, take the potential, the financial potential, the financial earning potential from DC and make something of it. And I understand how desperate they are, but people can also smell their desperation. And I'll go back to what I was saying earlier on, that they're attempting to distract from next year's movies as well. So I think this is a fucking crazy situation. I've never known a film franchise trying to distract from their own movies. So we've got all this hype around James Gunn. He's talking about a lot of exciting things, but we're not really talking about the DC Extended Universe anymore. So next year you're going to be seeing these movies being marketed, but they're not going to be marketed by James Gunn, and probably not Peter Safran, who produced a lot, if not all of those movies as well. So that's an uncomfortable situation for Peter Safran, because if they're really bad and they don't make a lot of money, that's embarrassing for Peter Safran because he was involved with them. Now, not in their creation, but producing them. And, you know, it's difficult to know how much of a creative hand he had into that. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're going to do everything possible to make you forget about next year's movies. They want you to consume them, they want to make money from them, but at the end of the day, they also kind of hoping by all the excitement and hype about the new DC Universe, you don't pay those 4 movies much attention. And, you know, there's so much going on right now with DC. I mean, I don't blame people for getting confused. For example, like in the first Shazam post-credit scene, we had this Mr. Mind post-credit scene, that worm guy, whatever he was, really exciting. Then about a year or 2 ago, David F. Sandberg, the director, said that character would have nothing to do with the Shazam sequel, so why did you fucking do it then? It's confusing, isn't it? But they're introducing original non-comic book characters in the Shazam sequel, but not dealing with a character they teased in the first Shazam movie post-credit scene. This is what the Hamadaverse was attempting to do. This is what they did with Ted Kord in Blue Beetle. No Ted Kord. But we're getting a Victoria Kord, who's not part of the comics. And of course people are saying, isn't this exciting, original characters? Wait, you're replacing comic book characters with original characters. This simply doesn't make sense. But here is the biggest hilarity of it all. A couple of weeks ago, on a new social media platform that James Gunn was on, he asked fans what out of all the characters who have never had cinematic births would they like to see. James Gunn revealed it was Booster Gold. Guess what, everyone? Booster Gold isn't going to be in Blue Beetle. The thing everyone's asking for won't be in Blue Beetle. So imagine the hilarity if Blue Beetle is part of the new DC Universe. But there's something even more funnier. When James Gunn told us this, he also said basically he's not going to write about characters that are voted on. This is not vote for your best characters. So James, I'd like to ask you personally, and you're not going to answer because you don't watch my channel, not many people do, but why did you ask fans to vote or to tell you what characters they wanted to see and then say, well, I'm not going, just because people have voted for them, it doesn't mean, or told me what they wanted, it doesn't mean I'm going to give it to them. So the whole exercise was futile then. So the whole thing is his hilarity with DC as far as I'm concerned. You've got James Gunn distracting from next year's movies, not really giving us very much. He's responding to fans, which is great, but after a while, you end up repeating yourselves. And in the end, you're better off just keeping your mouth shut, zipping it until you've got something to talk about. I can't sit here and make a prediction about what's going to happen with DC Universe. I can't tell you if it's going to be good, bad, or indifferent, or even if it's going to work. We've been here so many times. I've tried to give you examples of other franchises, and the only one really, apart from the MCU in the past few years, that's been successful and gone past 5 movies is the Harry Potter franchise. And that tells you something, that apart from Kevin Feige, no one, but no one, has succeeded in a huge, expansive, cinematic entertainment universe. And the way Warner Brothers want to do it by throwing everything at us all at once is a huge challenge. I personally hope it works, but I'm also getting bored of the James Gunn love-a-thon on Twitter. It's getting a bit too much for me to take. It's getting boring now. He's responding. You know, you've got to stop it now, mate. I'm sorry. You have to stop it because it puts people's backs up in the end. Look, you've got a job to do. You've got a lot of work to do. You've responded to some fans, that's great, but you can't give us any information, so what's the point? We know this new DC Universe is going to be its own thing, one story spanning multiple platforms. We already know that, and you keep on telling us that. So there's no point in repeating that. And now, apart from that, and telling us we're here something before San Diego Comic-Con, which is extremely very helpful, I agree, but now it's time to take a break from Twitter, James. You don't have to. You don't have to obey what I say. I am just advising you because unless you can tell us something, you're not answering questions about Superman's future. When the actor who's meant to be playing Superman in the future, if you believe that's the case, is saying lots of stuff as well. So it's very weird, it's confusing, we just don't know where we are. This has been the DC Universe Daily, Monday's edition here on Movies TV Mad with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.